All right. Well, I'm hearing a couple more beeps, but we will go ahead and get started. It is 2 o'clock. So my name is Stephanie McGuffin. I'm a regional coordinator with VITA's Integrated Services Program, and I'm also the project lead for the Statewide 911 Data Analytics Project. So today I'm going to spend some time reviewing that project with you. I want to provide you with some background information, talk about the actions that the 911 Services Board has taken so far in relation to this project. We're going to talk about participation requirements of the PSAPs. I'm going to review the data sharing agreement. That data sharing agreement is going to include information about data access and data request and retention. I'm going to go over a general project timeline and explain the orientation package that we've put together, and we're soon going to be sending that out to all the PSAPs. So I'm going to run through that. I know it sounds like a lot, but we're gonna be able to move through it. The meeting request allowed us about an hour and a half for this presentation, so hopefully everyone can stick it out with us through that. After my part of the presentation, we're going to have a demonstration of the ECATS product by Jordan Elliston with ECATS. She is their Customer Communications Manager and is someone that you will probably all be hearing from as we continue to move through this project. We also have Tiffany Chambers from ECATS on the line. She's the sales director. I believe Johnny Irons is on also with ECATS, and he's one of their network engineers. So we have some good ECATS representation for questions as well. If you have some technical questions, we can deal with those as we move through the demonstration. So a few housekeeping items. Number one is that your lines are not muted because I want you guys to be able to ask questions at certain points throughout the presentation. So in the meantime, if you could just mute your phones so we don't have background noise, that would be appreciated. Also, if you have questions as I move through the presentation, if I could get you just to maybe jot those down or send them through the WebEx chat window, and then we can kind of take them all at one time at the end of the presentation. That way we'll be able to move through the information and hopefully get your questions answered maybe before you have a chance to ask them. So at the end of my part of the presentation, we'll do a call for questions and see if we can answer some questions at that time. And then also after the demonstration, we can have maybe we'll have some time for questions then as well. All right. So I know that was a lot, but let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. So I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about this many times, but I wanted to again talk about the current state and the problem that we face and how a common data analytics solution across PSAPs can help us assure that the 911 network and call delivery efficiencies increase or at least stay the same as we move toward and start to implement next generation 911 in the Commonwealth. So through our planning process of the last year and a half to almost 2 years, we've done a lot of work in development of documentation. We've done a 911 feasibility study, a next-gen feasibility study. We've done a 911 comprehensive plan, as well as other planning. And we've decided on, and our board has agreed upon, several guiding principles. One of those guiding principles is to make sure that with the implementation of next generation 911, that 911 service in the Commonwealth is not degraded. However, since we currently have very minimal collection of 911 data and really don't have any data regarding the performance of the existing network, we don't have any way to monitor and know how the system is functioning now or how the system is going to function in the future. So that's the problem as it stands right now. So what's the solution? Well, we know that it's critically important that we have a data-supported understanding of the current functional levels of 911, both the 911 network and system as a whole, and then operationally for you all within your PSAPs. And we want to understand the impact of any next-gen 911 services that we put onto the network and the impact of those services on the functional levels. So we want to be able to use data and reports to understand all of those impacts. So we need a standard reporting tool across PSAPs that's going to provide us consistent, comparable data analytics. So the Emergency Call Tracking System, also known as ECATS, is the solution that will provide us that understanding. So after several presentations to the 911 Services Board and with input from the PSAP community, from the Regional Advisory Council, and et cetera, the board's taken several actions so far on this project. The first action that they took was to approve an allocation of $1 million of existing budgeted funds to deploy ECATS statewide. And we want to be able to start that deployment and start that data collection as soon as possible. A couple other actions that they took recently, just last week at their board meeting, was to approve a conditionally mandatory participation of the PSAPs in this project. We'll talk about that a little bit later in some slides. And they allowed for an exception process to the participation, so we'll review that as well. They also, at their meeting last week, approved the data sharing agreement. So that, again, has been approved and is ready for execution, and I'm going to go over that agreement and talk with you a little more about how to get that process started. So first, let's talk about the participation requirements. As I said, the board approved a conditionally mandatory participation, and this is based on the board financing this project. So basically what that means is that as long as the board finances the installation and service and of ECATS, that the PSAPs are required to participate. If a PSAP fails to participate in the program, then that will result in the PSAP becoming ineligible for the PSAP grant program. Okay, there can be, or there will be an exception process. So if a PSAP feels that they have a considerable hardship or an exceptionable reason that they can't participate in the project, then we would need to know that. You need to speak with me or your regional coordinator. Let us know what that hardship is. We'll see if we can help you work through that. We're still going to need to be able to get the data that the board has decided is so necessary to help us move through the implementation of NextGen, so we'll have to figure that part of it out. And then an exception will actually take action by the board. Okay, so if someone is seeking an exception, that will have to go to the board and be approved or denied by the board. All right, so next we'll talk a bit about the data sharing agreement. Hopefully you've all heard about the agreement before. We've been working on it for a while. And this is an agreement that will be entered into between the PSAP or the locality and the board itself. It covers the following items, which I'm going to talk about further in some coming slides, but I did want to kind of run through the list with you here. The data sharing agreement has a lot of good, helpful information in it. It includes a product service description. It reviews data ownership, records retention, and FOIA requests for data. It's going to talk about and let the PSAPs consider the level of access that they want to grant to the board and VITA staff. It reviews the requirements of connectivity, and then it goes over the financial responsibility of the system. So let's talk a little bit about the data sharing agreement, the specific information in the data sharing agreement. One of the most important things in there is the part about the access levels. So the PSAPs will be able to decide on a choice between two different access levels that they will grant to the board and VITA staff. The first thing that the PSAP can choose is to provide unrestricted access to all ECATS data and reports. So again, if a PSAP decided that they would like for us to be able to get to any of the data collected and reported on within ECATS, they can give us unrestricted access. Or the PSAP may decide that they want to provide access to limited reports, including the reports that are listed here on the slide in front of you. So again, either we can have unrestricted access or we can be granted limited access. You'll notice on the slide that several of the reports, the 4 reports there, are listed in red. So those reports are ones that would be aggregated statewide. So for example, that PSAP answer time report, that would be a report that we could get to as VITA and the board, and it would give us the average PSAP answer time across the state. It would not give us individual PSAPs. So that's what those reports in red are for. It also states here the ad hoc reporting tool, and that's a tool within ECATS. I'm sure we'll have a look at that later, where you can actually go into the data, set up some criteria, take a little deeper dive, and create some of your own reports. We have found instances in our pilot project that we did where that was very helpful in figuring out some oddities that we saw in the data. So we would like to have access to that ad hoc reporting tool. It does state in the data sharing agreement that we will not use that reporting tool unless we are in consultation with the PSAP about that. The next part of the data sharing agreement talks about records retention and FOIA requests or just requests for data held within ECATS. This is something that a lot of the PSAPs have had question about, understandably, in the past, and something that the board wanted to make sure that the data sharing agreement was very explicit about. So in the data sharing agreement, it clearly states that in both cases, both for FOIA requests and for records retention, that the PSAPs are the owners and the custodians of the data. So all of the data within the system belongs to the PSAPs. You are the PSAPs and the localities are the owners and custodians of the data, and we, the state, the board, VITA staff will simply have access to that data. The data does not belong to us. We just have access to it. And you'll probably hear me say that a number of times because we do want to be very clear about that. So regarding requests for data, if the board or ISP VITA staff receives a request for data within the system, we will turn those requesters over to or provide them contact information at the PSAP. If requests come to the board or staff for those statewide data and reports that we looked at on the previous slide, those ones in red, then we will respond to those requests in accordance with the board's and VITA's policies and decision makings. So again, if someone requests data, general data about a PSAP, we will turn that requester over to the PSAP. If someone requests from us those statewide aggregated data and reports, then we will make decisions on releasing that information. So again, regarding records retention, the same theory applies, or the same thing applies. The PSAPs and localities are the owners and custodians of the data. So again, each PSAP is going to be responsible for ensuring proper retention of the data, based on the Virginia schedule of retention. As well as retention is the destruction policies of the PSAP, so that's something else to consider, both retention and destruction of data in ECATS. whether or not you want to keep local copies of data from within ECATS. There are ways to download data. So your retention and your destruction policies are something that you will want to review internally and then share those with ECATS so they can help you manage your data, how long it's kept, when it's destroyed, and things of that nature. And I know this is a lot of information and some of it's coming at you fast, but this is kind of to give you an overview. And we are going to work individually with each PSAP to make sure you all understand everything about this project. So there's going to be more individual contact coming as we move through the project. So now I'll just give you kind of a general timeline of the activities that we're working on, the activities that we will be working on. Most of these are concurrent. They overlap a good bit. They involve both or all the PSAPs, VITA and VITA staff, and ECATS. So all of us are going to be communicating with each other throughout this project. So the PSAP contact by VITA staff, that's happening now. It has happened as well in the past as we've gone through and been talking about this project and doing other demonstrations, webinars, and et cetera. And then in early July, which is already next week, you will start receiving your orientation packages. This is a package of information that I've put together for each PSAP to have. Lots of valuable stuff in there, and a lot of kind of to-do items or things that you need to know and be aware of that you're going to be required to do or understand, things that are going to need to be done in consultation with VITA, some other things that are going to be done in consultation with ECATS, but all of that is going to be explained in that orientation package that you're going to receive. The VITA staff is also going to work with each PSAP to make sure that data sharing agreement is read, that it's understood, that it's reviewed. We will work closely with you guys to feel comfortable with that data sharing agreement, to understand it, and then work with you all to acquire signatures, both on behalf of the PSAP or the locality and by the board. We want to have all those data sharing agreements executed at least by September. Again, some of the information from that data sharing agreement, like depending on the level of access that you choose to provide us, that will have to be configured within the ECATS system. So we need plenty of time to allow ECATS to configure access and accounts and things like that as well. So we want to get those data sharing agreements executed fairly quickly. In the July and August timeframe, each PSAP will start to receive contact by ECATS. Some of that contact will begin as early as next week. Some of the first steps that ECATS is going to take with the PSAPs is regarding networking and the not the fun kind of get-to-know-you networking, but the actual connectivity and physical networking of getting the ECATS equipment installed and connected. There's some information and things that ECATS needs to gather to configure the hardware before that gets shipped out to each PSAP. Again, so that moves us into the next step, the logistical planning. That runs from basically now, July, all the way through September, and this includes the hardware configuration and testing. Again, that networking information that they've worked to gather from each PSAP. That'll happen July through September, and then in October through December is when they'll actually ship the equipment out to the PSAPs and have their installers come out and do the physical installation of the equipment. So we're hoping to have the actual physical installations completed by around the end of December. After or as the equipment gets put in place and the data starts coming through, ECATS will work on the data acceptance phase. Again, this is kind of a rolling schedule. It goes along with the installation of the equipment. This data acceptance phase just looks at the data as it comes through the port. It makes sure that the boxes are communicating with the ECATS data center, that there's no oddities in the data, that it's parsed correctly, it's able to be read and received and that type of thing. So that'll go through the entire installation time. And then, of course, following that, in the months of December and January, ECATS will be working with the PSAPs to provide training. The training is included in the project. There are various ways that ECATS can provide that training. They can do web-based. They can come on site. We'll probably work with them to do some regional training, so they're not jumping around to 121 PSAPs, but we'll work that out and make sure everyone gets training and familiarity with the system. Again, that'll happen in the December to January time frame. And all of this information, the timeline, and what all these things mean are included in that orientation package that you're going to be receiving. Which leads me into my next slide. Again, that package is something that your RC is going to be sending out to each PSAP. We're going to start that tomorrow afternoon, and then hopefully everyone should have their packet by the end of the day on Tuesday, the 5th. Again, this package has a lot of information in it. The first 8 or 9 pages are kind of the meat of the project and give you a lot of good information, and then there are some important appendices to the document or to the package as well. I do ask that you give it a complete read so that you know what to expect and some of the things that we're going to be asking for. I've included a frequently asked questions section to the document that has in it a lot of the questions that we've heard from the PSAPs and others in the past about this project. So, trying to get as many answers out there as I can. Other things to be included in that orientation package, again, is an explanation of the project. The data sharing agreement itself is an appendix of the document, so it's included there. Once you receive your package, you can feel free to use that data sharing agreement for your review. If you need to have others in your PSAP or locality review that document, legal review, that's the one you'd want to use to work on that. There's also information in the packet about some additional add-on modules that ECATS has for their system. So there's information in that package about those add-ons and what a PSAP might want to do if they would want to purchase additional functionality of the system. It explains in the orientation package what the standard MIS is that you'll be receiving through the project that we're doing, the installation of the equipment, the standard MIS, and then the service and support that you'll receive are what we provide through the project. But again, there are some add-on functionalities that if a PSAP decides they want to purchase those, a PSAP can certainly do that, and they can use an existing contract that VITA has currently with ECATS, and that's explained in the orientation packet. ECATS has a RDDM network and installation guide. The RDDM is the box, the component that will be installed at the PSAP, and that installation guide explains in technical terms how that installation can take place. It explains the networking side of it, the configuration of IP addresses. This is an important document that the PSAPs are going to want to have a look at, and you're going to want to share this document with your IT support. So if you're needing IT support to help you set up the configuration and networking, then this is the documents that they're going to need to read. Also, as ECATS reaches out to all the PSAPs to gather this information, they have technical support as well to help you work through any questions that you might have about that networking and installation. And then the document also goes through several steps that are required both for the pre-installation, getting everything set up and ready, and then the post-installation, making sure the data's coming through okay, getting your training and that type of thing. So there's steps for all of that. There's information about setting up your user accounts. PSAPs are going to have the ability to kind of set up those user accounts, the username and passwords to log into the system. You'll be able to set those up individually however you want to for your PSAP and for your staff at your PSAP. So, for example, if you had a training coordinator that you wanted to allow to get into the system and run certain reports, then you can work with ECATS to set up their user access, their username and password. And then also that frequently asked questions section is included in the document as well. Lots of useful information in that frequently asked questions section. As you work through the packet, if you have other questions, your regional coordinator will be able to help you. I, of course, will be here to be able to help you and the regional coordinators work through this, so please ask us if you have questions. If you're confused or concerned about anything, please let us know, and we'll work with you to get it straightened out. So some of the initial steps that are really going to be starting today, again, is getting that package out to you all and working with you on executing the data sharing agreement. Is that just me? I hear music in the background. Can people still hear me?
Yes. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Someone must have put us on hold. We've got elevator music background. That's great. But anyway, one of the first things, again, we want to work on is that data sharing agreement, getting that executed. It's going to be up to you at the PSAP to figure out who locally has the authority to sign that agreement. It's again, a decision that you guys are going to have to make. If a PSAP manager has that authority, that's wonderful. That'll be the person. If you need to run it up the chain to an administrator or someone of that nature, then that's what you'll have to kind of determine, and we'll, of course, help you through that process. So that's one of the first things that needs to happen. Another important thing that needs to start happening, if it hasn't already, is that the PSAPs need to engage their IT support. Again, reviewing with IT that installation guide that's going to be included in the package that you're going to receive. We want to start working on determining the network connectivity, the port assignments. If you have question about the actual physical connectivity, the technical questions, we, of course, are here to help you, regional coordinator and myself, but also this is something that ECATS is going to be reaching out individually to each PSAP for, and they have the technical expertise. So a lot of those technical questions are going to be between the PSAP and ECATS as well. If ever you want to have VITA involved in those conversations or help the PSAPs through that, please let us know. Another thing Stephanie. That we're working on.
Stephanie, this is Bruce Edwards in Franklin. Regarding that particular part of it, just in our case, we're on a closed network with our CPE, and we do not take care of any of that IT component. It's handled all by the CPE vendor. And I know there are others that are in the same situation we are. It's all repairs are handled through contract. And I'm thinking that there's going to be some extra cost incurred for them to make these changes to the network. Is that going to be something that's covered by this project, or are we going to have to bear that cost?
So we are right now, and it kind of leads into the next bullet there, VITA is right now working with all the call handling equipment vendors and the majority of the maintenance and service providers that we've been able to get a hold of so far to get the CDR ports licensed and activated on all the call handling equipment. So the module that comes from ECATS, the RDDM, gets connected by serial cable to the CDR port, and that's where all the data, comes out of the call handling equipment and goes into the buffer box. So we are working with the vendors and the maintenance providers to make sure that that gets activated and to make sure that during the physical installation, if the maintenance and service provider requires that they be on site to see that installation happen so that it's not causing a problem with your current maintenance, then we will coordinate to make sure that maintenance provider and ECAS are on site at the same time. All of that should be covered under the current maintenance plan that you have. What may include some extra costs would be that after that gets connected, then that module has to be connected through IP to the internet so that the data can get sent up to the cloud. So if cabling is necessary for that part of the project, or hopefully there are available ports that already exist that we can just connect to, then that's good if it's already available. If there's something, a network drop or something that has to be put in to make that connection, then we're going to need you to share that with VITA staff so that we can work with you to get that done, and VITA will pay for any of that needs to happen. So again, something like cabling, dropping a new cable or ports and switches, we will work with the PSAP and provide funding for that to make sure that we get that connectivity set up.
In this packet, is there an estimation on what kind of bandwidth you need, what kind of traffic that's going to go across this port?
I believe it is. If someone from ECAT can answer some of that better than me, please.
To be honest, this is Jordan. To be honest, if that would be probably a question to direct more towards the field team, or if Johnny's on the line. But I know it's not very much. It does not require a lot. It's just serial data, and we're basically just sending it up to our servers, essentially. So what I can do, Stephanie, is if that is not in the packet, I can follow up with that information for you after the webinar.
Okay.
Is it sent in real? Is it sent in real time?
So what it's doing is it essentially sending data along about every 5 minutes, and what it's doing is it's taking whatever was dumped in that last 5 minutes. So obviously the call has to have completed for it to output from the CPE into the CDR data. But once the call is complete, it could be up to about 5 minutes before that's loaded into our system.
Okay, that's what I need. I think your answer of not very much is about what I need then.
Okay, perfect. I will get more details though, and I'll follow up with Stephanie.
Hey, Jordan, can you guys hear me? Hello?
We can now.
Hello.
Okay, I've been trying to say something. My mute button, something wrong with it. So the question was, what was the question again? How big are the packets?
Yeah, about how much data is sent across the network.
Okay, so the data is encrypted, right? So we're talking a very small amount. We're talking megabits. We're not talking about anything like a gig or anything like that. But the actual measurements, of course, are going to be depending on how much data we're actually sending at that time. So we can get you a more accurate account of how much, on an average, what that packet would look like. But since it's encrypted and it's compressed before it's sent, the actual data you're going to get from your CPE and the CDR, it would definitely be smaller than that when they send it across the network. So it's not something that you're going to have to worry about, like on your bandwidth side, if that's what you're concerned about, going down your actual network. It's a private VPN anyway.
Yeah, that's more than enough information that I need. I didn't know, since you were putting some equipment on site, that whether it was going to sit here and then dump all at once, or doing it every 5 minutes, or pretty much in close to real time. It's going to probably depend upon how many calls I've got and all that kind of stuff. So that's more than enough information for me.
Okay, we can also we can also time it as well. They can change that timer, so it doesn't have to be every 5 minutes. It's whatever your network will allow, which shouldn't be a problem at all, actually.
Okay, and this is Stephanie again, and I do know in the pilot that we've done as well that ECATS very closely monitors the activity. They monitor the RDDM boxes themselves to make sure they're functioning correctly. They make sure that data is being sent when it's supposed to, and if anything odd happens with that box, if it quits sending data or the connection appears to be down or something, you at the PSAP will get an alert that has happened. So again, they monitor those boxes very closely. And also if let's say the internet connection went down and the box wasn't able to send data, it would store that data until the connection is reestablished and then send the data out at that time. And most of that, like we said, most of that information is included in that the installation packet. But again, when you have questions like these, work with ECATS and with us, and we'll get you the answers. Did someone else have something?
Yes, Stephanie, it's Steve Marzoff. I did want to say just two things on it. One, Bruce, you asked about connection to the closed network, that is the call handling equipment's network. This does not connect to that, so that remains unchanged. It only connects to the call handling equipment through the serial port of the CDR port, the call detail record port. So as a result, the only IP connection is the internet that plugs into the RDDM. So I didn't want anyone else listening to think that we're in any way connecting the call handling equipment network now to the internet to where they would create a security hole. It's on the outside, and it only connects through the data dump port, the CDR, which only receives data from the call handling equipment. It doesn't send anything back to the call handling equipment. And then the second thing, I just want to make sure it's perfectly clear. Any cost associated with the deployment or maintenance of this, we will cover. Now, that doesn't give you a blank check to go out and buy a brand new network or internet connections or things like that. But as an example, during the installation, we actually had a PSAP, and during the pilot project, that all of their ports on their switch were full. So they needed to buy a new switch. They decided to buy two. We bought one, they bought the other. That was fine. They showed us that, in fact, every port was currently taken, and it was a couple $100 switch. It wasn't, a $10,000 switch. So we'll work with you to make sure if you have a legitimate cost, we'll cover that cost. But you need to get that authorization before you go buying it to make sure it's going to be covered. We know of the CDR port. We know of some other issues like Stephanie mentioned cabling and so on. But if there's other things that we need to know about, just let your regional coordinator, let Stephanie know, and we'll work with you on it. But there is absolutely no intention for you all having any cost to implement this project, on your side, that it would all be reimbursed at a minimum.
All right. Thank you, Steve. I did see one other question that popped up about the equipment itself. The box that gets installed is a very small box. My understanding it takes a 1U rack space to install that equipment. So we'll take some space on your call handling equipment rack. That box, the serial cable that we've talked about, and the power supply will all come from ECATS and be shipped to the PSAP. And then we will also very soon be notifying PSAPs individually of what their estimated installation date is. So we talked earlier in that general timeline that we want to have all the physical installs done around the kind of later part of December, but before the holiday. We're going to have 2 technicians from ECATS out here running across the state doing these installs. They're very knowledgeable and have seen a lot. So they're very good at doing the installations. And we have, again, an estimated date. We're going to try to hold as close to the schedule as we can. It could slip a day or two to either side, but most of the installations are going to happen in the month of November and the first part of December. So as your regional coordinator reaches out to you with a closer estimate of the date, if you have something big that's going on in your PSAP at that time, for instance, if you are getting a new call handling equipment, getting an upgrade of your current system, then please let us know if that install is going to happen around the same time, because we want to be able to work with that and make sure that we're not having to double do anything or that we miss anything. So again, if you have an equipment replacement or something like that going on at the same time frame, you'll want to let us know that so we can work with you and ECATS and everyone to get that install done at the best time that suits everyone. And just a couple other, this is my last slide. Everyone will be happy to hear that probably. Just a couple little odds and ends. Understand again that the board is financing and procuring ECATS. It is the intention of the board that this be a long-term and continued service that we are going to fund. In all the presentations we've done in the past, and understanding the importance of the board and the state having this data, make sure we're not harming the system, make sure we understand how the system's performing as we move into next gen. It's very important. So it is the intention of the board to continue with this service. Currently, the funding runs through fiscal year 17, and we expect it to be renewed after that time. So the board is buying the system, and we're working to have it put in place, but it's your system as well. And we want, you at the PSAP, at the PSAPs to use this system. I think when you see the demonstration here in a few minutes, if you haven't seen it before, you will be equally impressed with the capability of the system. There are a lot of things that it can do, not only for us at the state level and looking at, the network and wireless call delivery and things like that, but there's also a lot that this system can do for you at the PSAP level. The ability to run PSAP operational specific reports. You'll have that ability. You can use this system just like it's yours. It's yours. So we want you to use it that way. Along those lines, each PSAP is also a customer of ECATS. So even though the state is paying for it, the PSAP for the customer, you'll have the ability to again set this access levels and some of the configurations you want. You're going to receive product training, and you're going to receive the service and support of ECATS, which in my experience so far has just been wonderful. They are able to again monitor that system if they see anything odd in the data. If trunks aren't responding in a certain amount of time, they have alerts that they have set, and they'll let the PSAP know if data's not coming in like it should. If records aren't found like they should be, then they're working with the PSAPs. They work with maintenance and service providers to correct any issues that they have. So it's great service and support that you're going to receive from ECATS as well. So again, that was the end of my slides. I have Tiffany listed here. Tiffany was having a travel nightmare. She is on the line, but we're going to have Jordan Elliston do a demonstration here in a minute. And if anyone has a question now, I know we have a lot of people on the line, but we will take a couple minutes and maybe answer a couple more questions. If you sent one through chat, you might want to go ahead and reiterate that. Anyone have any questions? I see Jerry Smith asked if it's possible to get some examples of the reports that you can do through the ECAT system. We can certainly get you some PDF examples of reports out there. You'll see in a minute, Jordan will run through a lot of those. I believe ECAT has some on their website as well, but we can get some out to you too.
Yeah, we can also distribute the training manual if we wanted to do it that way, and that'll have all of the reports in it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's see, I had a question about how can a PSAP pay for additional services from ECAT, such as text to 911. call accounting. Again, some of that additional functionality, the PSAPs can purchase that at their cost and discretion. There is an existing contract that VITA has that's referenced in the packet of information that you'll receive, and the PSAPs and localities can be or are authorized users of that contract. So there is a contracting vehicle already in place that PSAPs can use if they'd like, and the pricing is listed in that contract, and you can work with Tiffany Chambers on that. So any other questions from anyone before we move into the demonstration?
Stephanie, this is Derek, Tazewell County. One thing I sent you on chat also just a second ago is during the presentation at the spring conference in Virginia Beach, showed where the state of California was actually seeing the information in real time across the state. I know some PSAPs here in the region would like to share or view the data in real time with their partner neighbors, and we've even discussed a little bit in our region being able to see this in real time as a situational awareness type function. As storm fronts move through, we could see the call volume as it comes across our region. Is there any way to work with ECATs on something like that?
Yeah, so I'll let Jordan talk about that a little more maybe during the demonstration or after me, but they do have an add-on feature called the dashboard that I think people could be able to use regionally, where it does show kind of the activity of call volumes and the network among PSAPs. So that is an option for folks. As well, there are some configuration options that PSAPs can do within the system now. So if, let's say, Derek, if you wanted access to your neighbor's data or your neighbor's reports, and all the PSAPs in the region agree to kind of share those data and reports, then it can be set up with an ECAT so that you can see kind of regional reports that yourself and all your neighbors could see the same report among your PSAPs. So there's a way to do it there. That's not real time, but there is the dashboard, and we'll let Jordan or Tiffany talk about that a little more during the demo.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, with that, I am going to try my hardest to give presenting capability to Jordan Ellison, and she is going to go through the demonstration.
Are we good?
Got it. I see it.
I see it. We see it too.
Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get started then. As Stephanie said, my name is Jordan Ellison. I manage the Customer Support and Analytics Division of ECAP. So we handle all the system acceptance, making sure that your data is clean and reporting properly, as well as the ongoing support. So Stephanie did mention that it is a service-based system, and I do want to reiterate that. You have unlimited service through ECAP. So you can call us anytime you like for anything that may come up. If it's a general question, if someone's asking you to pull data for a call and you're not sure how to find it, if you're getting a survey that you need to respond to, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. All of that is included. The same goes for training. So after you've been trained initially, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll do unlimited webinars. All that's included with your service. So that being said, ECAP is a web-based reporting system, meaning you can generate reports from any device with an internet connection and a browser. So you can generate reports from your smartphone, from your tablet, your laptop, whatever you prefer. So what will end up happening is once your system is live, you will get a URL and a username to log into the ECAP portal. Now that will be governed, what you see when you log in will be governed by permissions. So that'll determine what PSAPs you see when you log in, as well as what reports you see. So Stephanie did mention you had some control over that. You absolutely do. You may want to have a shift supervisor have access to certain reports and the technician have access to maybe just the raw data. And we do have a lot of control for each individual account depending on how you want to handle that. So that will determine what you see when you log into the portal. What I've done here is I have come into the ECAP system and I have gone to the raw data section of the portal. There are three main sections of ECAP. You have reports. These are your pre-configured reports, which we talked about a little bit. You also have ad hoc, where you can do that custom reporting, and then the raw data. So this is one of the sites that were part of the pilot project, and so this is actually live data that you're seeing here from today, and this is the CDR feed that's coming out of the Vesta equipment out there on site. And this is what we're using to populate our database to build the reports that you then see within ECAT. So all of the information in the system is coming directly from this raw data feed. What's nice about this is it offers transparency. If you ever have questions about what you're seeing in your reports, we can come back to the raw data and reference that. It also offers you an unmanipulated call record if you need to take it to court for some reason, or if you need to prove that a call was transferred or answered at a certain time or something of that nature. Ideally, you don't have to come in here too much. It's not very fun to read. The idea is that we have software that pulls out all of the relevant pieces, populates the database, and then you have the ability to generate reports off of that data that's already been parsed out. So I did want to come in here and show you what that raw data feed looks like, but like I said, you shouldn't need to be in here too much. So this is your raw data feed. You can look at individual days. You can also download data. So Stephanie mentioned storing data locally. If you like, you can feel free to come in and download up to a month's worth of data. We will store your data as long as you want us to. So if the project goes on for 5 years and you don't ask us to scrub data, then we will not. So you'll have historical data back to that time. If you would like us to, just let us know what time frame you'd like us to do, and we can manage that on our side. So this is the raw data area. I'm going to go ahead and go into the pre-configured reports, which is where we'll spend most of our time today. This is the home screen. So when you first log into ECAT, this is what you would see. You would then see your PSAP listed here, and you have your reports on the left-hand side of the screen. In this white area is where you put in the parameters that control the output in your report. So I'm going to touch on some specific reports here. The first that I want to talk about is the calls per hour by day of week report. So this report is exactly what it sounds like. It gives you calls per hour by day of week reporting. What's nice about this is you do have quite a few filter options when you're generating your report, and I want to touch on those here. So when you build a report in ECAS, all you do is you just choose your date range, your PSAP, and then you're going to make some selections in terms of how you want your output to look. And you have some options here, so you can decide if you want to see your data by day, week, month, quarter, or year. So that determines what your output looks like. It is calls per hour, but you can also choose to look at 15 or 30-minute increments. If you had a call storm or there was some type of incident and you want to dig deeper into that specific time frame, you may want to do that. And you can do that by selecting these different intervals here. And you also have a time block feature. And this is available throughout the portal, and it's great for shift reporting. So if you're a shift supervisor and you want to just look at the time that you're responsible for, you could come in here and put in a specific time frame, and then it's going to grab just that slice of time for whatever date range you've selected. So it allows you to narrow down by shift selection as well. Now, we also have different call types at ECAS. We do report on 911 as well as administrative and 10-digit emergency calls. So if you need to get information on your admin calls, outbound, dialed numbers, things of that nature, you can also do that through ECAS. Default is 911. You also have the ability to include, exclude, or only look at abandoned calls. So maybe for your calls per hour by day of week, you want to see when you are getting the most abandoned calls from a staffing perspective and look at it from that standpoint. You could do that by choosing abandoned only. And then lastly, you do have the ability to choose either inbound, outbound, or all calls. So depending on what you're reporting on and what you're using for your reports for, that would determine whether you want to include outbound or not. This agency affiliation, don't worry about this. This is just if you have access to multiple PSAPs. And the last feature is that you do have multiple output options in ECAP. So you can generate the reports in web, which is what we'll use today, or PDF and Excel. I really like the Excel option because then I can build graphs off of that. I can play around with the data, but it's up to you, what format you want to generate in. So those are some of the main filters. We'll go ahead and jump right into the report here. This is what it looks like. This is your calls per hour by day of week. Like I said, it's exactly what it sounds like. So we're getting call counts per hour and day of week, as well as the average number of calls for that hour and day of week. At the bottom, you have your overall, now it's zoomed in. You have your overall totals per day of week as well as per hour. So it is a lot of data. Again, this may be something that you want to apply your time block filter to just look at a specific period of time, or perhaps you want to look at it overall. So this is your calls per hour by day of week report. Now there are a couple other calls per hour reports in the system. One I want to show you also is calls by operator. So you do have the ability to report by operator as long as your equipment is outputting this information. So in this case, the PSAP, call takers are logging into the VESTA with these specific names. This is what was configured inside the VESTA, and this is what is coming out in the raw data and allowing us to report the number of calls answered per operator per hour. Again, you can narrow it down into smaller increments. You could look at just specific shift times, but you do have the ability to get information per operator. And that applies through ad hoc and some other reports in the system as well. So it does allow you to really dig into what a specific operator may be doing. So that is your calls by operator report, more from a PSAP operational perspective. You also have calls by circuit. And this report is showing you your call counts by trunk. What's great about this report is it can help you identify trunks that may be seized. So you do expect kind of an even rotation between your trunks in specific groups. So it looks like these two trunks are sharing a group where they're rotating evenly between cell 1 and cell 2. Same for cell 3 and cell 4. But if you were to run the report and you see zeros for these days down here, you know that this trunk may be seized and it's something that should be addressed. So it gives you insight into what your trunks are doing and how many calls you're getting per trunk. This applies for 911 as well as your admin trunks. You can see how many calls you're getting on your animal control line or on your gate line or a ring down, etc. This can also be personalized. So if you want us to put additional names in here like we've done, we can absolutely do that specific to your PSAP so that you can name the line to something that's relevant to you. This is call counts by trunk. You also have the ability to look at circuit utilization. So you also want to know how you're doing in terms of your trunking. Like, do you need more trunks in a specific group? Maybe you should move trunks from one group to another. So the way that this reads is it's showing you that there are 4 circuits in the wireless group, and there was a very, very small period of time this year where all 4 trunks were in use simultaneously, meaning there were no wireless trunks available in this group to take calls. Now, it was a small period of time, but this is something you may want to keep an eye on, potentially move a trunk over from wireline to wireless, etc. So this allows you to look at under or over trunking without having to request trunk studies or things of that nature. Now, you also have a class of service report. Here we're looking at your phase 1 and phase 2 counts as well as all of your other classes of service. So as we start to see more voice calls and telematics calls, you can see those numbers here as well as your phase 1 and phase 2 information. Now, you also have a top ANI report within ECAS. This report is basically a frequent caller report, and it allows you to identify those phone numbers that are consistently hitting your PSAP. For example, you can see this phone number has called into 911 100 times this year so far, and then you're able to see average duration. So it becomes very obvious who's calling and hanging up versus who's actually calling and taking up your operator's time. And so you do have the ability to look at this for your individual PSAP. Now, this no ANI provided are going to be calls that genuinely did not have ANI information or ALI information. And that will happen for calls that are abandoned early, that couldn't pick up ALI, or that truly had an ALI error. So it will also help you identify if you have high volumes of that occurrence. Now, Stephanie did also mention the PSAP answer time report, and what she mentioned was that this report, if there was limited access, would provide aggregated totals basically for VITA. You would be looking at your individual PSAP data. What I've done here is I've actually aggregated some of the sites from the pilot project into a singular report. So we're actually looking at these 3 PSAP data aggregated together, but the report would look the same for an individual PSAP as well. So what we're seeing here is the percentage of calls for each hour answered within 10 seconds. And at the bottom, we're addressing the other standards. So you're seeing the total number of calls, the percentage answered within 10 seconds, as well as 15 and 40 to address NFPA standards. You can see here that the standards are not only being met, but also exceeded. And you would be able to do this reporting, again, by shift. You could break it down into smaller increments. However you want to break it out to understand how you're doing in terms of answer time. Now, in the system, we do look at answer a couple different ways. There's answer time kind of from the caller's perspective as well as from the call taker's perspective. So if you are a ring all PSAP, Your call takers are really only responsible for the time that's under their control, which is the time that the phone is actually ringing out. So we do have another report that actually just looks at call taker performance versus overall answer time from the customer perspective. So it depends on which way you want to look at it in the system. So that's one of your answer time reports. I also want to talk a little bit about call transfer reporting. So what's really awesome about having ECAPs installed statewide is that it gives us the ability to track a call as it's transferred across PSAPs. So, you can tell where you transfer a call out because you can use star code or a dial number to figure out where you transferred a call to. However, in terms of data, the data doesn't indicate where the call came from, if it came from another PSAP. Because we're installed everywhere, you'll be able to see where the call came from as well as where you sent the call. So that's what we're seeing here is a report for Augusta County, and what I'm going to do is show you an example that has multiple transfers in it, because this will show you chaining. So if a call hit a PSAP, was transferred to another PSAP, and then say, for example, was transferred back, you would see that information in this report as well. This is literally going to be a list of all of the calls that hit your PSAP and also hit another PSAP that we're determining were a transfer. So it is a lot of information to look at. A lot of times when you are looking for transfer info, you have a specific phone number or a certain call that was a complaint that you're looking for info on. You're trying to figure out where it came from or where it went. If you do have that information, then prior to running the report, you can come in here and just type in the phone number, and it will filter it for you so that you don't have so much data to consume and read through. It just really depends on what you're using the report for. Now, if you are looking for overall totals, then you would want to use a call transfer count report. And we put this together. It's more of a summary of the information you're seeing here in your list of transfers. So this is showing you overall how many transfers were done to Augusta County from Staunton and how many were transferred from Augusta County to Staunton City. So it gives you those overall totals back and forth. So this is some transfer reporting you can do. We also have some other transfer reporting capabilities that have to do more specifically with your wireless cell sectors. And one of those is the wireless transfer summary report, and I'm going to touch on this here. So the idea of the wireless transfer summary reporting and the cell sector reporting is the thought process that if you have a specific sector that's sending calls to your PSAP, and say it sends 500 calls a month, and of those 500 calls, you're transferring, say, 60% of them to another primary PSAP. The idea is that potentially you should reroute that cell sector to the PSAP that you're always transferring to so that you don't have that added time. It puts less stress on your PSAP and the call takers or the callers aren't waiting as long. This report gives you the information to be able to assess how often those calls are being transferred from a specific sector. So in this example, we can see this cell sector and this directionality with it's a Verizon sector sent 121 calls to Waynesboro City. Of those 121 calls, 58.68% of them were transferred to Augusta County. Now, we're doing this based on star code. So when you get this report, all I would need for you to do is to tell me, okay, star code 23 will transfer my call to, say, this PSAP, to Waynesboro, for example. We would configure it on our side to then replace this with the word Waynesboro so that you don't have to remember where your star codes go, because you wouldn't want to do that. So that's why you're seeing some star codes as well as some names. These have not been configured, and these have. So we're seeing that these 58% of the calls were transferred to Augusta County. What's interesting about this report is you also have the ability to visualize the report. So if you click this link here, it will open up a map that looks like this. And it's going to plot those calls for you on the map. And it's showing you star will represent a call that was transferred, and the circle will represent a call that was not. We're also seeing your overall Phase 2 and Phase 1 totals here. Because we're not going to plot your phase ones as it would just be the tower location and we'd have a bunch of dots on top of each other. So we are just plotting your phase 2. So we want you to be able to see kind of what those totals are and what we're plotting. Now if we zoom in here, we can see the actual directionality of the sector that we're pulling from the alley information. So we see that the calls are falling in that sector azimuth, which we would expect. But what's nice about this is, say you're trying to determine, calls, maybe they should go to another PSAP, and you have a lot of them that fall along the freeway. Well, you could use that to help decide maybe where you want to send those calls. This is also going to show you where the PSAP is located, so you have that plotted as well. And you do have the ability to do a satellite view also. So if you want to understand, okay, is there a school right here, or is there a mall, to maybe help decide where you want to send those calls, you have the ability to visualize and look at that as well. So this will help you do some of that wireless cell sector analysis. Like I said, if you have any questions as you use the system, we're more than happy to help you assess the data and provide any information that we can. So that is your wireless cell sector reporting. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump into ad hoc here. Your ad hoc system is where you're going to do your custom reporting. Like I said, you do have the ability to call us. We can help you put templates together. We can help you build reports, and you can also share templates amongst yourselves. So if you build a custom report that you feel is useful and you want to share it with a fellow PSAP, you can do that. It won't share your data. It will just share the template. So then they have the ability to run that same report against their data. So in ad hoc, oftentimes you will be looking for something in particular. Maybe there's a call from a certain phone number, or you have a certain lat long, you want all of your abandoned calls, etc. So when you come in here and you're ready to use the system, like I said, feel free to give us a call. We can help you build it. Or you can use these little question marks that will tell you what each of the fields are in ad hoc. When you build a report in ad hoc, it's very simple. You just enter a name, choose your PSAP, and then you choose a date range. What's great about ad hoc is you do have the ability to specify by hour, minute, and seconds. You can get down to very small increments of time. And we also have a now option. Ad hoc does update as soon as the data is parsed. So you're going to be able to see a call typically about 5 minutes after it completes, which is nice because you can go access the data right away if you need to get more information on, how long it took to answer that call, the alley info, etc. So I put in a short date range here. The way that the system works is I put in a date range. What I'm going to see is literally a list of all of the calls that occurred within this time frame. And then I'm going to choose what I want to sort by or what I want to filter by. So again, if I have a call from a certain phone number, I can go ahead and type that phone number in. It'll filter the results for me by that number, and I'll only see calls from that phone number. Alternatively, if I just check the box, it's going to include that field in the report and give me the ANI information for all of the calls in the time frame that I selected. What's really nice about the output in the system is it is extremely clean. So once you generate some data, so you just choose a couple fields that you want to include, at that point you can go ahead and generate it in one of the output formats. I prefer Excel, and you can filter down from there. So what I really love about the system is I can generate a larger data set and then mine through that data within Excel utilizing filters, pivot tables, whatever it is I want to do. And then I don't have to continually come back here and update my filters. I can just pull a large data set and work with that. Now, alternatively, if there is something specific you're looking for, I would recommend just coming in here and typing it in to filter against it initially. But if you are someone who wants to kind of play around with and mine your data, I would recommend utilizing your Excel format here. So a lot of the fields are self-explanatory. The way that these drop-downs work is if you say all, it's just going to include that field in the report, or you can specify a specific field. I did mention you also have operator reporting in ad hoc, and you can see that here. So maybe you want to see all of the calls that were associated with this specific operator, then you could filter by that, and you could do it that way. So that's just a very quick overview of the standard editor. We also have an advanced ad hoc system. The first piece looks the same here, but you do have more fields available in advanced ad hoc, and it's instead a list of fields that you're then going to add. What's great about this is you do have a bit more control. One example being you can decide how you want your conditions to work. So in standard ad hoc, it's going to always say you type in 911 into your alley ANI. It's going to look for the string of 911 anywhere in that call. But maybe I want to pull a report that has all of my uninitialized calls in it, my NSI calls that I can't call back, which we know are a problem. I could come in here and say, okay, I want all my calls that start with the area code of 911, and I'll get a list of all of my uninitialized calls. And then maybe I want to know whether or not those calls were abandoned, and I want to know how long they lasted and how long the answer seconds were on them. Alternatively, I could also decide I want to look at all of my phase 2 uninitialized calls, and then I could pull my lat and long, and I could pull those lat and longs and plot them and perhaps locate a specific person that may be flooding my system that I can't find or call back because it's uninitialized. So there's a lot you can do with the system depending on what it is you're looking for. It's just a matter of what fields you want to include and how you want to filter against those. So real quick, I will go ahead and show you an Excel output. What's great about this system is when you go to generate, you do have the option to click here. It will close out the window and email the report to you as soon as it's done. So if you want to start your report, say, on your work computer and you need to pull it back up at home later, then you'll have it in your email as well as on your account to do so. Now, the system does generate reports pretty quickly. If you can see here, I did get my output pretty quickly back here based on my filters. It looks like there hasn't been any uninitialized calls yet today because that's the only date range I've put in. You can see here, this is what the way the output would look in the sense of the fields being very clean. So this is what I meant when I said you could come in and throw filters on, and at that point you could just filter against each individual field and say, okay, now I just want my outbound calls, or I only want my abandoned calls, etc. So you have a lot of control over how you want to use your data. That being said, again, ECAS is support-based. So if there's something that you cannot get from the current system, the way that it stands today, we are more than happy to do what we call data requests. So at that point, our developers will actually write custom code that will run through the back end, and we will email reports to you up to once a week. That is also part of the service. So if you're not able to get what you want to through ad hoc, do let us know, and we can help you put something together that's more specific to your needs and run it through the back end. Again, there's no additional cost for that. That is included with your system. Speaking of support, you also have a support link here in the portal. So once you start to have access to ECAS, you can always access the support link here. We do offer live chat as well. So there's actually someone sitting over on the other side. If you were to type in something here, you could ask a quick question and someone could live chat with you. Alternatively, you could always email or call us. We also have a knowledge-based system that we update quite often where you could come in and search against something in particular to get information, for example, on how to report on transfers in ECAS. And this is more of a walkthrough, step-by-step, as opposed to the manual, which is a listing of all the reports and how to read them. So we do want to offer you as many ways to access support as possible, and we do encourage you to consume it as you start to use the system because that's really the backbone of what we're doing here. That being said, just a couple other little features that you have. You do have the ability to schedule reports. So that means that reports are emailed to you. That way you don't have to log into the system all the time. My favorite report, or what I would highly recommend scheduling when you get to that point, is the day in review report. This report will be emailed to you every morning, early morning, with call summary information from the day before. So every morning you'll get an email that's telling you, okay, for the previous 24 hours, for the previous day, you had, this many calls, this many abandoned calls, this was your answer time, these were your busiest hours. And what's great about that is it allows you to establish a baseline as to what you can expect from your PSAT. And that way, if you get a report that really breaks from that baseline or that average that you've established, you can just forward it off to us and we can do the research for you. Maybe it was a denial of service attack, or you stopped getting calls on a certain trunk, something of that nature, and we can actually do that analysis and follow up with you and help in that way. And you can keep an eye on the system without having to log in every day. All these management reports are also available for scheduling. They're essentially some of the same information we looked at in our standard reports, but they can be scheduled, and they will come to you monthly. Now, the only other thing I want to touch on is some of the monitoring that Stephanie mentioned. We do have a field team here, a support team that monitors your data, and there are a couple of different ways that we do that. The system will automatically generate alerts if we notice something in particular about the data. So one alert that will come up is if we see 10 calls in a row on a 911 trunk without alley information, we will go look at it, make sure it's not test data. If you're testing, we won't reach out. But if it looks like you truly are getting alley errors for 10 calls in a row, at that point we will contact you and just notify you, ask if there's any work that you're doing, and if not, then we would be happy to then open a ticket with your maintenance provider to get that issue resolved. We also monitor your call volume. So we do expect a certain average call volume, per day of week and per hour, and we monitor that over time. So if you drop below that expected call volume, we'll take a look at the data and make sure that there's nothing going on, and if there is, then we will go ahead and contact you. We'll also get alerts if the cable becomes unplugged, if we lose network connectivity, things of that nature, at which point we would either reach out or dispatch if needed. So that is some of the monitoring that is going on. So once you're deployed, you would expect to get a couple calls or emails from us to inform you that maybe we've noticed something different about the data than what we would normally expect to see. The only other thing I mentioned was the training manual. You do have this available. You can always download it from the portal, and we can also distribute it prior to install as well. It's a PDF. It just has a listing of all the reports and details on those reports. So that's kind of my spiel. I don't want to go too long. Maybe I did already. Stephanie, if there's anything I missed or you'd like me to address specifically, just let me know.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job, Jordan. I appreciate it. I will say, too, that, during this presentation and what Jordan did and what I did, I know it was a lot of information.
Yeah.
I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed by anything you're seeing. For the PSAP folks out there, your VITA staff's going to be here to help you through every step of it. ECATS is going to be here to help you through every step of it. So you have that support, and as you have questions, please reach out to us. And we'll be reaching out to you guys as well. Jordan went through a lot with the demonstration here. There's a lot of really cool stuff that ECATS will do. You, of course, like we said earlier, will get some individualized or group training as well after the installs. So you'll see it at work that way as well. And you'll notice in the demonstration that Jordan did that you see Augusta, Stanton, Waynesboro, and Fluvanna listed there. Most of you probably know that they were part of a pilot project that we did here in the state where they all had ECATS installed. It's been installed since October, I think, of last year. The PSAP managers there have been very happy with the system. I don't know if any of them are on the line right now, but they told me they've been really happy with the system. It's very intuitive for them to use. We've actually gotten Augusta County and Stanton have gotten together to had meetings where they've gone over some of the reports and talked about the transfer of wireless calls, and in a couple cases are actually working with the wireless provider to get some of the cell sectors rerouted to fix some of the call transfer issues that they have. So, it's been really helpful to them. If anyone on the line wants to talk with someone at Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro, or Fluvanna about their experience with the system, because they are users here in the state, please let me know, and I can get you in touch with them. One thing I've heard from a couple of them is that they have used this system in the couple of months that they've had it more than they ever used in the other system. So that's been real positive and useful feedback as well. Does someone have a question? I thought I heard someone. So are there any other questions? And if not, we can finish up. All right, I hear silence. So I appreciate everyone joining the presentation this afternoon. We will be doing the same presentation again tomorrow. If there are others from your organization who couldn't join today, please let them know. We'll be doing it again tomorrow. We sent out the information about how to join in and call in a couple times, and the other day it went out as well. So I look forward to working with everyone. Again, if you have any questions, please contact myself or your regional coordinator, and you will start receiving the orientation package tomorrow afternoon. So again, thank you to everyone, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye.